get on a board yourself. Your first board will often be an unpaid role. Try to volunteer on a board, get in a non-profit. It can be a governor at a school or a university. And actually on one of my boards, there's actually a sales and marketing committee, which is a bit unusual. We're competing with Netflix for people's attention. And so it's changing that mindset. Given our investor base, what should we use? Should we use YouTube? Should we use TikTok? Should we use social media at all? Should we focusing more on the traditional media? And of course, the answer is you can do all of those things, and finding fresh ways of thinking and fresh ways of doing things. And so if someone has marketing and AI, I think you'll be pretty in demand if you have both of those skills on a board.
Gillian, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
You've built a portfolio career. You sit on the boards of 4 listed companies, all spanning different sectors. You have a background in financial services and investment research, and you now run a coaching business helping senior execs break into board roles.
Yes.
I don't know how you have the time to do all of that. Well, perhaps we can learn more about that now. But I'm interested when you look back on your journey and you reflect on that. How did you get to this point?
Yes, well, I started off my career in investment management. I worked on the buy side as an analyst covering industrials and aerospace companies. And then I founded and ran my own investment research and training company. I did that for 10 years. And I'd always been interested in boards. So I thought at some point it might be interesting to join a few different boards. And I started off by joining the board of a nonprofit, the CFA UK. So it was a volunteer role. And I actually did that for 6 years, and I learned a lot. And so I thought that would be a great way to learn about boards and to figure out if I would enjoy a portfolio career at some point. And then the decision to actually go and have a portfolio career came a bit earlier than I expected, actually. I came to a turning point, both professionally and personally. A startup that I'd been working on didn't quite take off the way I'd expected. And then I had a very young child. So it just made sense at that point to see if I could launch a portfolio career. I got my first role and I decided to see, could I actually gain some others and make a portfolio out of it. And luckily, it worked out. So that's how I started off with the board.
Fantastic. The decision to move from executive to non-executive director, what prompted that move?
So I think it was that turning point. I mean, so I had that executive career. I was working on my own company. I'd started a company and I was working on another one. And then it made sense. I think I felt that I had enough to contribute to boards after having worked for several years in finance and investment management.
So it's an experience thing. Is it a confidence thing as well?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's having enough experience to think that you could add something to a board based on what you've done in your executive career. And then I think it is having, it's having the desire to be on boards. Yeah. And then it's having the confidence to think that, yes, I can do this. And I think having some exposure to boards, having some experience on boards before you go for that first big paid role. So doing some volunteer work on boards, I think can be helpful. It gives you that confidence to be in a boardroom, to know when to speak and when not to speak, and how to work well with other directors. So I think having the experience to bring something to the board and then having the confidence because you've had some exposure, I think those two going together, and the desire to do it.
Yes.
And then having the tenacity as well, because it can take a long time to get on a board and they're quite competitive.
Yeah.
Even volunteer roles sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of those things, I think.
You mentioned the time you were at the CFA. You're there, you're on the board for a 6-year period. When you look back at that, and you think about what you were like at the beginning of that compared to what you had learned and the experience you gained after a 6-year period, could you summarize that change?
Yes. I mean, I think I just, I'd volunteered with the organization for quite a long time. So even before I joined the board, I'd been on various committees. I'd been chairs of different committees. And then I joined the full board. And it's a nonprofit, but it's a very professionally run board. Lots of board packs with lots of papers, and you have to prepare well. So I think I just learned how to understand what it meant to be a director, how to work with other directors on the board, how to to know when to bring my expertise to the fore and when to sometimes step back. Yeah. And I think it was really good training for a sort of paid board role. I don't think people necessarily look at it the same way as if you have a paid board role when you're looking for another board role, but I think it is definitely valued, and it can give you something to talk about when you're in an interview. You can talk about your experience on a board, and you can sort of stand out from other candidates who haven't had any board experience at all.
Yes, of course. So let's dive into your role as a board member. You sit on boards across 3 investment companies, each in a different AIC sector, targeting completely different types of investors. As a non-exec, you're on the receiving end of marketing. Obviously, I'm coming from a marketing angle. When a marketing report lands in your board pack, what are you looking for as a board member? And how often do you get what you're looking for?
What I would say is I think looking for a few different things. So you're looking for the activity that's been happening, whether the marketing activity that's been going on within the company. So whether that's the various outreaches or PR or meetings or, whatever activity has been happening within the company from a marketing point of view. As a board, you might have not been seen this for a few months, since you want to have an update on what's actually happened within the company. So you have an idea of that there's some activity going on. And then I think, if possible, it's good to see what the impact of that has been. So what has the impact been in terms of additional website traffic or in terms of more engagement? And ideally, you want eventually flows to come into the trust. And then I think more and more going forward, as a board, you want to see a real strategy for reaching the retail investor, some tactics and some strategy as well, because I think that's the sort of holy grail for investment trusts at the moment. Everyone's trying to reach that retail investor. And so seeing a plan, seeing a strategy, and maybe some new ways of thinking, actually, in terms of how that's going to be achieved. I think that's something that boards want to see more of going forward.
Yeah, at a board level, what's your sort of views of understanding of marketing, and is from a skill base, is there enough knowledge and skills within boards that you're part of?
So I think traditionally boards, investment trust boards, investment company boards have brought people on who have investment management skills, and finance skills, and also accounting skills for the chair of audit, and that's been the focus. And so I think people who have marketing expertise, I think it's not as common to find on boards, but I think more and more, I think it's being valued. I think more and more you're seeing people with marketing expertise being asked to come on boards, and because I think, as I mentioned, that's something that's really important. I think more and more that investment trusts are trying to reach out, and as the wealth management channel is sort of shrinking away, in some respects, finding that retail investor. So I think it's being valued more, but I think traditionally, investment trust boards have looked for people with that expertise.
I've got a really probably daft question, so excuse me in advance. Is there a set number of positions that you can have on a board? So my reason for asking this is when you talked about more marketing roles coming into boards, does that mean that someone's being replaced, or that the boards are looking to bring in an additional person with marketing experience? I
mean, typically for an investment trust board, they tend to be quite small boards. So you'd have 4, 5, maximum 6.
Okay.
So I think, yes, if someone's going to be, if you've decided you're going to bring someone in with a marketing experience, you're probably, potentially replacing someone else.
Yes.
So it's possible you could expand the board, but you always have to look at that, sort of cost analysis as well.
Yeah.
Cost benefit analysis.
And there's a tenure for how long you can be a board member on an individual board. Could you just, for the audiences and my own views, let me know those? Yeah. So most investment companies will aim to stick with what's considered best practice under UK corporate governance, which is 9 years for for a director. And typically seen as three terms of 3. But most, I think that's been different in the past. People used to stay on longer, but I think more and more people become quite strict about making sure that directors don't stay on for more than 9 years. And is that the same for chair as well?
Yeah, typically for the chair, I mean, there might be a bit of a leeway if, let's say, someone has joined and then they become a chair, they might get a bit more time.
Okay.
When they're when in that chair position, but generally the 9-year rule is being stuck to quite strictly these days.
And again, just thinking about the board and marketing functions within trust, what does good look like? What, from a relationship point of view?
Yes. I mean, I think ideally, even if you don't have someone who is a marketer on the board, let's say, I think it works well when there's someone who takes that responsibility to work with the in-house marketing team. So that person could be the chair, it could be another Ned. And actually on one of my boards, there's actually a sales and marketing committee, which is a bit unusual. And I think that works really well when you at least have someone on the board who's responsible for marketing, whether you have a committee or not. Because then they can foster that really good relationship with the in-house marketing team. So just like, you have the chair of audit who works with the in-house finance division, you'll have the management engagement committee chair, and that person will work with the manager and other suppliers. I think it's good to have, even if you don't have a defined committee, which, could be a good idea, you have someone who's responsible. And I think that can really elevate the position of the marketing function and foster a really great relationship between the board and the marketing team. And then, when you have that point person, they'll bring their learnings back to the board, and the full board will have a discussion about it. I think that's that's worked well when you have someone who's responsible and maybe even have a committee.
Yeah. I mean, when I look back and think about my experience with boards as a marketing agency.
Yes.
And this is going back, probably 15 years or so. But my first time I presented in a board meeting, I think we had about 5 minutes to go through about 30-page document. And it was, board meetings you're covering a lot of ground, aren't you?
Yeah.
But at that time, many, many years ago, wasn't seen as being as much value as it perhaps is today.
Yes.
You definitely get more time.
Have you noticed that? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. Yeah. But I'm interested in what you're saying about forming marketing committees, because presumably marketing committees can meet up with marketing teams outside of the traditional board meeting as well. Yeah. So you're getting more airtime with the board if you're a in-house marketing.
Yes, and I think that's unusual to have a separate sales and marketing committee. So one of my boards does, but and maybe we'll see more of that.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
because you do need time, don't you, to explain strategies and plans and get board feedback and stuff. So,
absolutely.
That's a good idea.
Good idea. Yes, we should start advocating for that.
Absolutely. So I think I did have a question, which is, do you think boards need more marketers on them? But I think you sort of answered that. Mm-hmm. It's a kind of I guess depending on where the individual trusts are and their level of experience or journey with their marketing.
Absolutely, yes. I think it does depend on the board itself. Whether they have that point person on the board who has a good relationship with the in-house marketing team, whether they have a committee, whether they have that expertise on the board, or not. I think.
Yeah,
it depends, and I think we will see more and more. But if we don't have marketing on the board itself, I think making sure that there's that relationship and maybe that point person or that committee is important.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your trusts that you're on the board with. So 3 investment trusts: a VCT attracting tax motivated investors, a biotech specialist trust, and a global income and growth trust. 3 completely different companies, presumably 3 completely different marketing propositions, aiming at different types of investors. Goodness me, how do you hold all of that in your head and simultaneously act as a non-exec across all of them? How do you manage that role?
Yes, I mean, I think you sort of wear different hats when you're in the different meetings. But I think there are learnings that are you can bring across to each one, and I think that's actually helpful. That you hear something on one board that you could bring across to the other.
Right.
And so I think there are some big differences between some of those investors and shareholders, but there are some similarities as well, which we could talk about.
Okay. What are the specific challenges then, and how do they overlap?
Yeah. So I think, with VCTs, I think people who invest in VCTs are looking very, very specifically often for that tax relief that you get.
Okay.
So I think that's a bit different.
Are they typically more of a wealthier than your average investment trust type investor, or they're just looking for a different type of product? What?
I mean, maybe. I mean, it could be that the profile is, wealthier because they want to sort of, maybe they've used used other vehicles, and they're using the VCT as a tax relief vehicle as well. So I think that's one aspect to look at. And then if you look at the others, so the IBT, which is a biotech trust, and then there's STS, which is a global income and growth trust. Both of them, they're quite different. But what I've found is investors are looking for some combination of growth and income. So they're looking for some capital appreciation and some income. So even on the biotech, on IBT, though most of these companies don't pay dividends, we've pay out of the capital of the company, we pay a dividend.
Right.
So there's some combination of growth and income that people are looking for.
Yes.
And then another similarity, I would say, is that what I've actually found, just sort of speaking to investors at AGMs, that sometimes you find people who are sort of investment trust specialists, and they have a whole portfolio of investment trusts, and they really like the sector. Yes. That's probably a certain subsector. I think what I would say is that most investment trust and investment company and VCT investors, they do tend to skew older demographically, sort of 50 plus or even older. And while of course we value all of our investors and shareholders, I think one of the challenges that the industry faces is trying to attract a younger demographic.
Yes.
So whether that's millennials or even Gen Zs, so for the longer term health of the industry. And so that's something I've been thinking about quite a lot as well. I think it's important to sort of have that pipeline of people coming in, as well as, keeping our more mature investors happy.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that you find across the investment trust and investment company industry.
I guess that's almost like attracting the younger investors, fresh blood, shall we say, coming through. Yeah. It's almost like the long-term marketing strategy, but attracting the near-term money right now. That's the short-term. That's essentially the sales driving activity, isn't it? Just thinking a little bit about how you differentiate trusts within the marketplace, and part of that is brand. And when we look at other products and in the marketplace, brands are everywhere. Within the world of investment trusts, how do you build a brand identity when the proposition is either so product driven or in one of your cases, the VCT, tax driven?
Yes. And I think it is, you have to really think carefully about what the positioning is, what the end customer is. And I think it's something that investment trusts are, as a whole, sort of struggling with in some ways in terms of how that you do that really effectively. I think that there are trusts that have done really, really well in terms of building that brand and reaching out to that retail consumer.
We had one on the other day.
Yes, actually, I did see that. I saw that podcast. But I think I heard something really interesting at the latest AIC conference, where there was one of the presenters talked about the fact that we need to, as an industry, as an investment trust, think of ourselves as a consumer brand, as opposed to just think of ourselves as a finance company, and to try and build that trust with the end retail consumer if we're trying to get more of those. And also that we have to realize that we're competing with Netflix. We're not necessarily competing with another investment firm.
No.
We're competing with Netflix for people's attention. And so it's changing that mindset and finding fresh ways of thinking and fresh ways of doing things. And I think that's something that, everyone is trying to figure out, because traditionally we've gone through the sort of wealth manager channel, and now it's trying to figure out how do you reach that end consumer who are often investing through platforms. So we're seeing platforms growing on our share register, but it's reaching that end consumer is very fragmented and has lots of many things competing for their time and attention. So I think we're all trying to figure out how best to do that.
Yeah, that focuses the mind when you think, right, my competitor perhaps isn't XYZ trust in my ARC sector classification. It's actually this behemoth Netflix, which and that's one way. Not everyone may agree with that, but I thought that was a really interesting take on it. Just think about who you're competing with. And also thinking about being more of a consumer brand, and thinking about the way consumer brands think, which I don't think, which I think is a different way for the industry to think. So now everyone may not agree with that prognosis, but I thought it was a really great way to think about it. If we're going to be going after the retail investor. And I think again, we did some work on the investment trust sector, talking about an initiative called the Missing Lever.
Yes. I went to that presentation.
But the talk in that event was everyone saying that the retail sector is something that the sector needs to engage more fully because of consolidation and such forth. So hence all the focus at the moment, I think, on the marketing side of things. Just coming back to you and the fact that you sit across the different trusts, you mentioned that it gives you advantages because you can spot things that apply across both.
I think so, yeah.
Does the opposite work? Does it create blind spots?
I hope not. I hope that, I think blind spots can often occur if you're sort of just focusing on one thing and not seeing other things.
Yes.
I think that, being in sort of on the boards of different companies that are facing different challenges, but some of them are similar, I think it helps me to, I would imagine, to see more and to understand more about what's going on with the industry more broadly, and then be able to bring those learnings to bear.
And presumably that's what the other people are on the board for, to help compensate for people. Everyone has blind spots. We all have biases that way.
Exactly.
So it helps, I guess, to work with your fellow board members.
Yes, and I think everyone sort of brings different expertise. So there'll be someone who is, has expertise in accounting, someone who has expertise maybe in different types of, maybe venture capital, or someone who has expertise in biotechnology, or someone who's we have one of our boards, we have someone who's a professor and is a specialist in the sector. So, and then you can all, bring that expertise to bear at the right time. And I think that's important, being on a board, not feeling you have to always be the expert at any particular time. There'll be times when you have the expertise and you speak up, and then there'll be other times when someone else comes to the fore.
So in your role across these boards, and we mentioned the importance that is being pushed upon the retail sector now, arguably driven by wealth manager consolidation, as well as many other pressures that seem to be on the sector, not least activism. How urgent do you think the shift is to reignite the retail sector? And do you think it's working?
I think it's urgent. I think it's the topic of conversation of, pretty much every investment trust board. I think it's quite urgent. So there's marketing. There's also, people trying to think about the impact of AI as well. And so if someone has marketing and AI, I think you'll be pretty in demand if you have both of those skills on a board. But yeah, no, I think it's pretty urgent. And so I think we're all trying to find the best way to do that.
Is there any resistance to going at it full pelt?
Well, I mean, I think it's the resistance might be on what's the best methodology. So I think people still giggle a little when investment trusts start talking about TikTok.
Right. Yeah.
They're like, is that the right medium? Is it the right for our investors? Is it the right, given our investor base? What should we use? Should we use YouTube? Should we use TikTok? Should we use social media at all? Should we focusing more on the traditional media? And of course, the answer is you can do all of those things. I thought the F&C podcast you did was quite interesting. They've definitely shifted and come up with a brand new way of doing things. So and I think they're the oldest investment trust in the UK. So it shows that you can have a long legacy and a history and do things differently. So I think the resistance is, I think people understand what the problem is how do you do it, and getting out of a comfort zone and wondering whether that is the right thing to do. Just because everyone else is doing social media, is that really the right way? Maybe it's not. And it could be, for some investment trusts, you want to put more of an emphasis on it than others. So I think it's just, so the resistance might be on, we don't want to just do what everyone else is doing, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for our investor base and our target investor base. Yeah. I think there maybe needs to be thought on, not just, as we talked about, we have the current investor base.
Yes.
Do we need to start thinking more about the future? And I think of it almost like planting a tree. You can plant a seed now and you're not going to see much coming out of it initially, but in a few years' time, it can grow into this beautiful tree that provides shelter and fruit. And it may not provide that shelter and fruit to the people that planted it. You want to think about what's coming down the pipe and future generations. So I think there's always that balance between thinking about what is going to pay off now and what's going to, pay off in the long term, and what's going to benefit a particular trust versus the industry overall. Yeah. And, there's return on investment. How do you think about that? Near term versus long term. So I think the pushback might be on, what makes sense for us today and what's that balance between return on investment. And it is hard sometimes to judge what you're getting from a marketing campaign. So these are some of the decisions and the discussions.
That's a nice analogy though. And I like that. And it's, I guess the question I had in my head then was, when you were saying that story, is, do boards get enough time to think of providing for the, it's almost be like a custodian, trying to get that word out, custodian of the trust and protecting it for the future generations that are coming through. And I think that's lovely. I haven't actually heard boards talk in that respect, because my assumption, perhaps wrongly, and I hope it is wrongly, is that the pressure is on them to try and fix things, especially when activists are on the share register. It's like, we've got to react now. And hearing that you talk about having a long-term view, I think is perhaps something that I don't hear enough of within this community.
I think there has to be that balance. If there's an activist at the door, you have to react to that. You have to think about what's happening with the near-term performance, getting the interim report out and the annual report out, and figure out, looking at what's happening, what the managers are doing, and the performance and with the current marketing. But I think a lot of boards do have sort of strategy days, which are meant to be able to take a step back and think about, the longer term, the health of. There might be a particular topic. It could be marketing, or it could be investing, or it could be AI, or there could be some theme. So that gives boards an opportunity to really step back and think about the longer term, the sort of 3, 5, and maybe beyond outlook for the company. So I think that's really important, because you do have to do the day to day. You do have to get the thing, the stuff out that you're required to, and do have the appropriate governance, and but that gives boards a space. I guess the question is, you might say, well, should it just be once a year? But I think obviously when you have that, let's say once a year strategy day, then you're trying to make sure you implement it. So you have action points and action steps that are agreed with the board and the manager for the whole year, and then you check in on those. So you don't want it to just be a 1 year thing and then everyone just walks away. So that's the challenge, maybe. But I think a good chair and a board will make sure those are being implemented.
Yeah. I think there's a quote. I can't remember the actual wording of the quote, but it's along the lines of, if the strategy is good, there's no reason to change it. It's just, it's when things aren't working that perhaps the strategy needs to change. So if you set the strategy in place and then you reviewing that on an annual basis and tweaking it as you go, then things should be working. Going back to your lovely analogy of planting for future generations, you've thought about this a lot, and starting to form ideas for an initiative to make investment trusts more on the radar of Gen Z. Where did that thinking come from originally?
Yeah, I think it came from two places. So the company I ran, Daniel Elson, it did investment research, but also did training. And it trained young people on how to interview well for positions in investment research and finance, and then went in and trained junior analysts on how to do well in their careers. And so I sort of realized that young people, they really like training. They like sort of one-on-one coaching, and they're quite interested in that area. In that service. And then also the CFA UK, I mentioned I was on the board of that, and I did a lot of work with special interest groups. Okay. And so what you find is you'll find a group of people, mostly young, some more mature, but a group of people who get really excited about a topic. It could be value investing, or it could be energy finance, or sometimes quite niche topics, and they'll be really passionate about them, and they'll meet and they'll have speakers and dinners and all of that. And so I thought that, why not investment trusts? We didn't have one at the time, and there isn't one. But I thought investment trusts could be an area that, I think they're a great vehicle. It's not just selfishly think about the industry. I think they could be a great vehicle for young people to get involved in and to build and to invest. And there's so many different sectors that they can invest in, or that anyone can invest in. So I thought having a sort of special interest group combined with training, and then having sort of events where people could come and network. They could be online, it could be in person, there could be fireside chats. Young people love to have more senior people come and talk about their industries. They're always interested in their careers. And so have it all centered around investment trusts, have some training, have some events, and have a very social media friendly, maybe some influencers, and build some excitement there. And again, it's sort of planting that seed. But if you can get some people who are really interested, and this could be global, it could be not just people in the UK, you can be people all around the world coming online and talking about investment trusts and sharing their ideas. And then eventually, they may not have a lot of money initially, but they get excited, they get involved, it grows, and then
yes,
and then eventually come through it. Now it's quite a long-term payoff potentially.
Yes.
But I think I've seen young people can get excited about it. They like training. They like people to invest in them. They like to hear about careers. They like to have events and socializing, of course. And so I just think that could be something that the industry could do, maybe with the help of the AIC as well.
Yeah.
And that could be something exciting, a sort of, industry-wide campaign initiative, as opposed to each trust doing their own thing.
Well, I think it's a great idea. Well, I've been banging the drum for the industry with the missing lever.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Do a national campaign.
Campaign.
That would be a fabulous extension of it as well.
We should talk more about that.
That's it. We should. We've talked a lot about investment trusts and your role as board, but I did say at the beginning, you pack a lot into your there's a whole another part of your life that we haven't talked about. Your company, Board Interview Success, that you've built from scratch. Now, as I understand, this is for you to help individuals who are thinking about taking on or trying to get their first board role. How do you go about that as a business owner, marketing your own business?
Yes, and so it is about helping people who trying to get that sort of first paid board role, which is the key to unlocking many others. I'm using various channels and trying to see which ones work the best. But I think one is using Ned networks. So there are networks out there which they have people who are part of the target audience, and if you can get in front of those networks and present. Maybe just do a free webinar or make presentations. That I think that's quite a good way. Finding people who are already interested in that topic and getting in front of them. I think social media is another way, particularly LinkedIn and YouTube, and then word of mouth I think will play a really important role as well. And then there's through organizations. I think one thing I'll do is go into an organization and present to their employees, because they may have decided as part of a leadership development or retention program, they know there's some of their senior employees who want to get NED roles. And so they could bring me in to present to them or provide webinars or coaching or training to help them to get on their board. So I think it's a multifaceted way of doing things. And one thing I would say is that when you're starting a business today, AI makes it quite... it's very helpful in terms of efficiency, and
yes.
So I think that's something that we all have to should learn how to use more.
And there's the number of different tactics there. What's working on the marketing side for you the most? Is there one tactic at the moment is starting to move ahead of the others? Do you think?
Interestingly, I've found the Ned networks have worked quite well, because it's a group of people who are already interested in gaining roles, and so sort of. Getting in front of them. So I'm working on just a few more channels of people who are already part of a pool of people interested in non-executive director roles, or who are doing some sort of training program and linking up with them. I think that's a really good way. And I think I did that more quickly this time than I did. But I think running a business before helped me to think about, go straight and sort of, if you're a newer business, you want to link up with a bigger brand or link up with someone who already has your target. And so I think that can work quite well.
Yes, yeah, almost using that as in a way, it's a bit like branded content. You're tapping into that brand that has the bigger audience, and you're coming and going, right, there's similarities here. Venn diagram, where's the crossover?
Exactly, yeah. And you want to provide value to the people in that network, and then present. Okay, well, this is if you've liked what I've done here, I can provide more. But you have to, I think, always be willing to give value first in today's economy, whether it's free advice on YouTube or. Yeah. Downloads that people can have. People expect to be able to read and see what you've done and get familiar with you, and then decide, okay, actually, I like what this person is saying. I want to work with her.
Yes.
one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people that are perhaps listening on the podcast, we have an audience of senior marketers listening to the Growth Engine. I suspect many of them could be thinking about their next chapter and like the idea of becoming a board member.
Yes.
It's not as I understand, it's not a decision that can be taken lightly. There's a lot of work for you to prep up to that. How should they go about doing that, and how can they make best use of perhaps the marketing experience that they do have, and understand how that could translate into a boardroom context? And what other skills are they going to need to add to it to become a valued board member?
Yes, I think I think as we've discussed, my view at least is that marketing expertise will become more and more valued on boards. So I think if you're someone in marketing and you want to get on the board eventually, I think there are a few ways to think about it. So you do want to think about what you can bring and what your particular positioning is. One thing I would try to get exposure to boards where you are currently within your current organization, if you can get to the point where you're presenting to the board. That would be great. But even if you can't present, you can maybe ask one of your superiors and say, I'd like to sit in on a board meeting, and then you can get to see the types of questions that are being asked, and then you can think about, if I was in an interview, how would I respond if someone asked me that sort of question? You can see what's being discussed. And boards are very happy for someone to just come along and sit and not say anything. I think they won't even. It's not a problem. So I think I would trying to get exposure to a board. That's one thing.
There's a board etiquette almost, is that you need to kind of understand and learn about. Is it?
Yes.
Is that, I feel that, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. So
yeah, I think there is. There's sort of, as I mentioned, sort of knowing when to speak and not to speak. And, there are often lots of people in the boardroom and you have to sort of judge, and you have to be able to read the room sometimes and understand the role of the chair and the role of the different committee and some of the procedural stuff. So I think just getting exposure and just figuring out, is this something I would like to do? Some people think they want to be on a board, but they're like, they may not actually enjoy it, or they might really, really enjoy it. So I think that's one way, getting exposure. And I think that my number one as a piece of advice would be to get on a board yourself.
Right.
And your first board will often be an unpaid role, like mine was, or a not very well paid role. And so try to volunteer on a board, get in a non-profit. It can be a governor at a school or a university. There are actually some government linked roles that you can sometimes look at if your expertise might be valued. And there are a lot of resources out there where you can find different roles. So I would say get on a board, because it just gives you that sort of leg up, and it gives you that exposure, it gives you that sort of etiquette, and it gives you that understanding of whether you like it. And then when you decide to go for, let's say, a paid board role, you have something to talk about, you have experience, and you've shown people that this is something you're actually interested in because you've put in the time and you've volunteered, and I think it just helps.
And a couple of questions that jump up from that. How hard is that to get a voluntary role on a board? I mean, it sounds a very rewarding thing to do, but I suspect that it's not the easiest thing to do either.
Even getting a volunteer role can be tough. I was turned down twice before I got my first that volunteer role,
and that's got to hurt a bit. You've got to take some knocks.
Yeah, but you learn, and you learn from it. So you get turned down, or you figure out, what did I not do well? And actually, the first time I interviewed, I was terrible. I mean,
right. So
it's quite fair. And then you say, okay, and then you go and you actually do some research, and you figure out what are the questions are going to be asked, and then you come back, and so and especially if it's like a really large charity like the NSPCC or something. I mean, it's very hard to get on the board like that.
Yes.
But then the local smaller charities that maybe you have and I would say find something you're really interested in, really passionate about. They might be your kids' school board, or the university you went to, or something in music, or whatever you're passionate about. Try and get on a board. It could take a few tries, but make it something that you really decide you want to do and focus on it.
Yes.
And then do that for a while, and then eventually. And it doesn't always have to be there. You can get on the board without having volunteered. But I just think it's quite a good
way in.
Yeah, a good way in, and just helps you to figure out whether you actually like being on boards.
Yeah. Thank you. That's brings us to the end of the main part. But I do have one more question.
Okay.
And that's largely because of the environment we're in. What we always say to all of our guests that come on is, we have this sort of souvenir bookcase. And,
Yes.
I don't know if you would like to contribute to the bookcase, so we have a lasting memory of our discussion today.
Yes, I have thought about it, and I have a book for you.
Oh, fantastic!
Now, I did hesitate about this particular book because, in terms of relevance, because it doesn't have anything to do with boards or investment trusts.
Right, okay.
However, and then I realized actually it does have some relevance. So it's a book I wrote.
Fantastic.
And I wrote it in 2010, so quite a long time ago. And the link is, so I wrote the book, it's called How to Get an Equity Research Analyst Job. And I wrote a book for people who were looking to get jobs in investment research and equity research, which is what I had done. And no one asked me to write the book. I just said I wanted to help people who had done what I had done. And so the link is that now I'm through Board Interview Success. I'm trying to help people to get roles and to do what I did in terms of, making that leap to getting that first paid board role.
Brilliant.
So it's not exactly, relevant for the target market, but I thought it made sense. And it's a book for a bookcase.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm excited. Do you have a copy?
I do. I have a copy of the book. Let me get it for you.
Grand. Look at that.
Here it is.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Gillian, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening today to The Growth Engine. If you enjoyed this episode and like to hear more, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from and follow us on LinkedIn for regular updates or on hubagency.co.uk. Thank you and see you next time.